I think it says a lot about how much I liked the original Hajime no Ippo, in which I can come out and say, yeah, season 3 is by far the worst out of the 3 seasons, but it's still perfectly enjoyable. Yeah, the animation's not as good. Yeah, the characters aren't as interesting. Yeah, the jokes aren't as funny. Yeah, the fights aren't as interesting. Yeah, they don't really develop the characters in any meaningful way other than other than other than progressing Ippo's development as a boxer that was established at the end of season 2. It just the pacing for this for season 2 and 3 seems all out of whack because they really do seem to want to push this angle of there being multiple boxers with their own overlapping storylines, and it just does not work in a 25 episode season. Okay, there are just too many characters to focus on. If the entire season was about, one character, dealing with post World War II Japan, or claiming a world title, or defending your title defense against a bunch of hungry challengers, yeah, it might have been really, really interesting. But the thing is, season 3 of Hajime no Ippo tries to do all of that, and as a result, a lot of it doesn't really leave a big impact. Ippo only has 2 good fights this season. 2 fights, if I'm recalling correctly. Sawamura and Shimabukuro, right? I really, really like Shimabukuro. I thought we needed to get more into his character a little bit more. I thought he was a really interesting opponent for Ippo. Sawamura, I was really hyped. Ippo's equivalent to Brian Hawk, basically. And it's another. It feels like we're retreating old ground at this point. Like, it really does feel like at this point, the author is just sort of rehashing old story elements. Like, oh no, I've been blinded. Oh no, I have to fight for my friends. Oh no, I gotta fight for my Japanese pride. I'm a samurai. I've gotta go out there and do my best. I've gotta win this fight no matter what. It's reaching the point where it's kind of becoming a little bit repetitive. And like I said before, it's not as well animated. The fights aren't nearly as good. They're not nearly as engaging. You really do get the impression that Ippo is going to win that Sawamura fight. Right? You really do get this impression. I didn't think he was going to win the Shimagakuro fight. I thought he might legitimately lose that. But the Sawamura fight, like, it's so over the top with its build up, with its presentation, with its ridiculous background for Saramura, painting him as the most vicious killer imaginable, right? One of the best boxers in Japan. And then Ippo gets in the ring with him and utterly demolishes him. Like, if this guy did not have a very specific counterpunch, like, did not have the very specific skills needed to counter Ippo's Dempsey roll, like, he wouldn't have even scratched him. Like, let's be real here. Like, Ippo's at the point where he's basically stomping all of his challengers, and they kind of acknowledged that, like, after the Sawamura fight, when, like, all of his other challengers retracted their challenges to him, because he crushed Ryuhi Sawamura, right? This guy that was building his own legend in the featherweight division of Japanese boxing, right? And Ippo just immediately comes in, stomps him, even with Sawamura's overwhelming advantage. It was embarrassing for Sawamura, but it really made Ippo look awesome. But like, there wasn't enough of that. You know what I mean? Like, they built up Sawamura in a couple of episodes. They fight, they drop him, they go to a Takamura fight, they build up David Eagle, they fight. It's not nearly as interesting as the Brian Hawk fight. Nowhere near as interesting, which is a real shame, because David Eagle is probably the best new character in this. For the most part, like, a lot of the other new characters are just kind of boring and just kind of rehashes of things we've already gotten before, or just generic stereotypes or ridiculous joke characters that Aoki and Kimura have to fight. Like David Eagle was an actual actually an interesting opponent for Takamura, like the polar opposite of Brian Hogg, like a really popular, a really legit nice guy who works really hard to get where he is, like someone with a history in the Olympics, right? Someone who is really looking forward to this fight with Takamura, and the fight itself is. I don't want to call it lame. It kind of is, but not really, because the animation isn't great, but it's one of those instances where, like, the characters really sell it. Like, the storytelling itself is still great. When it really takes its time, when it really takes like 4 or 5 episodes, that's usually what it takes, in my opinion, which is one of the reasons why I'm always pushing for like longer seasons of this, because you need to have 4 or 5 episodes, right, to introduce new characters, to set up the fight, to get people interested in what's going to happen, to go into the training, and then like actually have the fight, right? Like 4 or 5 episodes, right? Longer if maybe if it's a big hard one like Ippo versus Sendo, but that seems to be generally how I feel. Like it needs to be 4 or 5 episodes long. But when you have a shorter season, like you have to cram all this stupid bullshit, like everywhere. Like Shimabukuro just kind of shows up. Oh, he's gonna challenge Ippo. Oh man, he looks really scary. He's only lost once. Oh, that guy who beat him. Oh, he's coming in now. Oh, Sawamura. Like Ippo beats them both soundly, and then we move on to like other boxers. Right? Aoki has a title match. Takamura has a title match. I'm not sure if does Itagaki fight at all in this season. I think he does once. Yeah, his sister shows up to work at like the boat place. Supposedly because she wants to work, but in reality, she's a huge thought and just wants to see Ippo's massive dick. I cannot get over how big of an underage thought Nanako is. It's just, she didn't really do anything in season 2, but like just the shit she pulled in season 3 and her very, very meager, very, very uncommon appearances. Unbelievable. Kumi is best girl for Ippo. Yeah, they actually have a couple of cute moments in this. Why are they not a couple? Like, come the fuck on. They're not really a couple yet. Like, come the fuck on, Ippo. What are you doing? The seasons need to be longer in order to, like, set up these characters, have room to breathe, have room for, like, fun character development episodes, right? And then have plenty of room for shit like the flashback sequence at the end, which really caught me off guard. I was really pulling for a new Ippo fight. Like, I was really hoping for one last Ippo fight to pad out the season, but instead we get this flashback sequence to World War II with the coach and his best friend and their Hermione Granger, their female third wheel as they fight like dirty, filthy American invaders in the boxing ring. It's so out of left field. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but it is very interesting. It's very well told. The fight is actually pretty good. For the most part. I think I was just getting tired of it by the end. I think maybe just binge watching 2 seasons of this and in such a short time frame has kind of worn me out on it. That might be part of it, and I did kind of get emotional at the end, but like this show really needs to be about Ippo, right? Like it needs to be focusing on like it can't just keep slapping on new characters like this. Like it really does feel like it really bogs down the development of other established characters. You know what I mean? Like it in a lot of ways, it feels more like Takamura has advanced in his career more than Ippo has in this season. It's weird to say that he went from a world champion to simply like relinquishing his belt, moving up a weight class, and then becoming the world champion of that in like one season. Like he didn't have to work his way up. He didn't have to do shit. Meanwhile, Ippo is getting shit for like, oh man, kid, your Dempsey roll. Yeah, sure, it beats almost every person you put it up against, but oh man, yeah, someone's gonna come along and beat it, and then it doesn't happen because surprise, when he actually knows about a weakness, he's gonna work to correct it. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. It really wasn't. Yeah, yeah, you needed to train for it, but he wouldn't have known about the problem if you had just told it to him to begin with. That bothers me. That really annoys me. Um, yeah, they spent so much time at the end of season two. The entire final episode of season two was like building up this idea that like, oh man, in the future you're gonna have problems with the Dempsey role because you're gonna go up against people who will just whoop your ass, and it just doesn't happen. Like Shimabukuro tries to fight it, and he does a pretty good job, but he fails, right? Because Ippo just doesn't give up, and then Sawamura tries to counter the Dempsey roll and then fails, right, despite his overwhelming advantage because Ippo was really well prepared and knew what he was going to do, right? Because of our boy Volg, right, who can somehow get in the ring and do the exact same thing that Sawamura did after having been retired for, I don't know, how long has it been? A couple of years at this point? Probably a year? I don't know. Like, they didn't really specify. There are definitely things I like about this season, but like I don't even know I would call it disappointing. But like I definitely think it's by far the weakest out of the three, right? Like this could have been a good opportunity to flesh out some of the other characters, and they tried to do that, but for the most part, it's not all that interesting. You know what I mean? Like Aoki's title fight, this could have been like a really good demonstration of what Aoki is supposed to be like in the ring, and it just comes off as like a bunch of stupid jokes, like the look away, like it just come the fuck up. Like I didn't find myself like all that invested in it, and I felt like it was a waste of time, honestly, and kind of just silly, and just I wanted to watch more Ippo fights. Like, come on. Anyway, so I guess like at this point there's no more Ippo to watch. I never did watch that Kimura versus Mashiba fight. I suppose I could go do that, but at this point I think I'm done. Until they release a new season or until they release the entire manga digitally, I don't think I'll be able to. I don't think I'll be able to progress any further in the storyline, which is kind of disappointing, honestly. I really like this show, and I would have immediately started season 4 if it existed, if it was out there. But unfortunately, I've hit the wall, so to speak. I have to deal with the fact that Ippo will forever be out of my grasp, just like the world title of boxing. Never, ever going to happen. But hopefully they'll be able to put together a strong season 4, right? I'm hoping they learn from their mistakes. It did feel a lot like season 3 was just a worse season 2 in a lot of ways. Like, it had a lot of the same problems. It had a lot of the season 2 had so much better animation, like so much better, like so many better fights. You know what I mean? Like Takamura versus Brian Hawk is probably a series highlight, right? Season 3 doesn't have anything like that. Like it is nothing even close to that, honestly. Like nothing. Season 1 and 2 had like amazing fights, but 3, 2 had its low points, but like 3 like kind of feels like a whole season of those kind of like middling, sort of not all that engaging fights, and all the fights that should have been good don't go on long enough. Like we needed more Shimabukuro, we needed like a proper introduction, we needed him like interacting with Ippo more, we needed more like it's one of those things to like it's hard to demonstrate exactly how you feel about it, like what the problem actually is. I feel like it just at this point I think it's mostly just the fact that the formula is kind of played out. Like Ippo wins most of his fights. Honestly, it comes off like he shouldn't win a lot of them, but he does. Ippo typically wins. He's gonna go all the way. He's gonna keep fighting, and it just I'm kind of reaching the point where I'm not really sure I even want to keep watching it if it's just going to be more of the same, like in this fashion. the Sawamura fight didn't feel all that different from the Mashiba fight in a lot of ways. Same kind of characters, only oh no, he's legit messed up this time. It's just uh, there are there are a lot of things to say about Ippo, but I think at the end of the day, I still really, really, really enjoyed this. Like, it's a solid show. It's not like the best season ever. Like, it's not the best thing ever, but I still reasonably enjoyed my time with Hajime no Ippo Rising.